Paul, what would you say to viewers watching this that are struggling with chronic pain every day and they've been kicked out of the medical system? Or, like in my mom's case, she's on 10 medicines every day, which I just blows my mind. But what do you say to someone who's currently suffering in pain? What is step one? I mean, aside from reading all your literature, which I've read a lot of it and just remain completely fascinated by, but for the person that is suffering from pain, like where do they start? I mean, they don't want to go down the route of taking more ibuprofen to kill something, or they might be still gobbling up the standard American diet. But what really is step one in terms of their journey to wellness?
Well, step one in my system is always establishing a clear motive for change. Giving people highly skillfully designed programs never helps unless they are motivated and truly inspired to make the changes. The biggest resistance to healing pain is always change to the beliefs and the patterns of behavior that created it in the first place. So step one in my model, I have a 1, 2, 3, 4 system I teach my students. One, what is your dream or goal or objective? And then is it qualified? If someone says, my dream is to be a millionaire, or they in 3 weeks, then that's not a qualified dream. If they come to me, with chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia and say my dream is to be pain-free in 2 weeks, I would say, well, if that was possible, it required that you change almost every aspect of your life. And the question is, are you willing to do that?
Right.
So the first thing we've got to do is establish clear motive and have at least a 7 out of 10 level of buy-in, 10 being kamikaze committed, 0 meaning not committed. Then 2, we have to do a proper evaluation to identify the imbalances. So the imbalances all break down to 2 simple categories. You're either excessively anabolic or excessively catabolic, and most people are excessively catabolic, which means tissue destructive. Anabolic means tissue restorative and regenerative. Once we know where you're out of balance with regard to the systems I mentioned earlier, then we have to establish clear values with which we can use to make choices. Your yes has no value until you learn to say no. And without values, you don't know when to say no. So in my system, I use a model I developed called the 4-doctor model. So Dr. Happiness is, what is my dream? What am I willing to do that's happy making each day so I don't forget how to do it and become a victim of myself? Then we have to say, what are my values around movement? Am I doing too much or too little? And what type of movement is best based on the kind of pain or challenge that I'm facing? It could be being in the water is ideal, so you're not weight bearing. It could be a non-impact elliptical machine. It could be light weightlifting. It could be walking. There's always the right answer if you have someone asking the right questions to the right person. So what do I need to bring myself into physiological balance, harmony, and have good posture so I can deal with gravity? And then what do I want to do from there? Climb a mountain, play with my grandkids, etc. So first, what is my dream? How much and what kind of movement do I need each day? Then what is my values around diet? Because if your diet philosophy is wrong, then it will mirror itself in the condition of your body, just as sure as I'm talking to you right now. You are what you eat and you are what you don't excrete. And so if you're eating a lot of pro-inflammatory foods, additives, preservatives, colorings, emulsifiers, stabilizers, dyes, toxins, medical drugs, then you're creating more. Well, you're inviting the pain teacher each day. You're complaining about your pain. So right. What is first and foremost is quality of diet. Certified organic is the way to go because you're eating clean food. Then what is the right proportions of plant versus animal foods or flesh foods for my body each meal, which requires that you pay attention to how your body responds and you get rid of any ideas about diet or isms. Isms have to go. That's a belief system, and belief systems don't change, but bodies do change with the environment. So one of the biggest restrictions to health is people's belief systems, because when the body changes, if the diet doesn't change, then you're trapped right there. Next, you have to have values around Dr. Quiet. How much rest do I need? And what am I going to do each day to have time for introspection so I really have a relationship with myself And we have to remember the nervous system has three classes of neurons: exteroceptors, which tell you what's on your skin and what's touching you from around the environment; proprioceptors, where am I at in space; and interoceptors, which tell you, for example, that you've got heartburn, gas, pain, indigestion, discomfort somewhere. You might feel that you have too much blood pressure because you feel pressurized inside. You could feel that your bladder's full or that your colon's full. So the time for introspection is also a time when we quiet our conscious ego mind so we can actually bring our consciousness into the introceptive domain and really start taking stock of, how does my body feel inside? How does my heart feel? How is my breathing? How do my glands and organs feel? Am I constantly waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, wide awake, and I can't get back to sleep? That points to your adrenal glands. Am I suffering from constipation? And then asking, what is it that I'm doing? What are the choices I'm making, or the inputs that are coming into my body that are triggering off these reactions, instead of selling that exploration to a doctor or therapist who will always just impose their own ideas on your body?
Sure.
And so, you see, we have to be clear on what our dream is. We have to be clear on what our values are, which have to be oriented toward what is the right movement and how much, what is the right diet. And we have to be willing to listen to our body and work with it for feedback, or we just keep eating out of habit, which usually causes more problems and more pain. And we have to have adequate time for rest, or we don't have enough anabolic recovery time. So we end up being catabolic, which leads to breakdown, and often is related to addictions, especially with athletes. Addiction to exercise, for example. And then if we don't have time to be in ourselves, then we're always looking outside for someone else to try to address what we can only identify through introspection, which we could call meditation, which we could call deep listening, which we could call presencing, which we could call having a relationship with ourselves and being committed to taking care of ourselves, because we can't give to somebody else what we don't have. So to the degree that you love people and relationships, it's very important to take responsibility for taking care of yourself, because the lack of health, fitness, and vitality decreases your capacity for agency, meaning to the degree you limit yourself from a lack of participation in your life, you limit your ability to contribute to anybody else's life.